Danny Aiello's character standing in the burned down pizza place that he built, and Spike Lee's character comes back to get his money because he owes him his pay for the week, which was $200, even though Spike Lee was the one who his character threw the trash barrel through his window, causing them. Basically, he started the destruction of his business. Comes back the next day to his boss, like, hey, you owe me $200. And he's got an attitude at him about it. And Danny Aiello basically just says, like, you don't give a fuck at all that, like, you know, I built this place with my bare hands and, like, this means something to me. And I've been in this neighborhood for 20 years and, you know, I've never harmed anybody here or whatever. And, like, I gave you your job and I considered you, you know, maybe not like a son, but like a friend or something, a student. And he basically just goes, like, his response is basically like, you think your pizza shop, like, matters more than Radio Raheem, which is the response that people give, as though as though it was like Radio Raheem is about to die, but if we burn down this pizza shop, we can save him. Instead, what happened is that Radio Raheem was already dead, not at the hands of Danny Aiello, not at his request, but just at the hands of the cops. And he's dead already. So then they burned down his business.
Let's not forget, actually. Yeah. Let's actually talk about one other thing about that movie.
The cop aspect?
Yeah.
Of the fact that the cops go in there, they cause the problem,
and
kill him, and then they leave him and his two sons there facing down a mob that's now blaming them because they're the only people there they could blame.
Yes, that's right.
Because now they're the representatives. So as soon as they kill Radio Raheem, what do? They stuff his body in the car. They realize that there's a mob turning into an angry mob. They don't call for backup. They don't say, oh, we got to get people. They go, let's get the fuck out of here. Yep. They haul ass out of there, and they leave Sal and his kids on their own. They go, hey, good fucking luck, bud. And now he pays the brunt.
Yes. In fact,
for a crime that they committed.
My opinion on that movie is almost completely reversed, if only because actually that scene right there perfectly encapsulates how I feel about cops. If you ever needed to know, what does Marcel think about cops? Like, you know, sometimes Marcel says things that are pro-cops, you know, every once in a blue moon. For the most part, he expresses, like, hostility to them. And, you know, he talks about law and order and justice and da-da-da-da-da. What does Marcel, when Marcel visualizes a police officer, what pattern of behavior is in his mind almost all the time? What is his vision? What is his prototype? Yes, at the end of Do the Right Thing, when these black guys, you know, they start this trouble in the pizza place, then the guy calls the cops come, they choke.
I don't know if there's any evidence that he called the cops in that movie.
Oh, someone else called the cops, whatever.
The cops just show up. He doesn't call anybody.
Yeah. The cops show up, they choke Raheem to death, and then they leave the shop owner surrounded by an angry mob. And
effectively they created that angry mob.
Yes. And
because everyone was already it was tense, but what turned them into a riotous mob was when this guy was killed.
Yes. And don't forget, anybody who's from New York, we talked about this with the Joker movie about Bernie Getz, all right? If that Italian shop owner defended himself with a gun in the city of New York, we've seen what happened to Bernie Getz. He would be arrested by the NYPD, and the NYPD would not hesitate, and they would put him through the New York legal system, right? That movie takes place in the 80s. He would have been fucked. That's what I think of cops. All right?
Yeah.
That is what the police represent to me. We need them. That Italian needed them. Where were they?
They showed up. They made his situation
worse. Yeah, they showed up.
They left.
They killed the black guy, made his life worse, and left. It wasn't like, oh, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. They were driving in the opposite direction.
Yep. And they left him holding the bag.
Yes. And they left
this guy was just killed in front of them.
Yep.
By a symbol of authority. And then they leave, and he's the closest thing left because he was technically involved. So he basically is now a stand-in for the murderer, the cop. That's why everyone should watch that movie. I'm telling you, you watch that movie with an open mind and a calm spirit.
Oh,
and
I
you
thought it was not calm in the end.
don't watch it thinking, what is Spike Lee trying to tell me? Whatever. I think he does a really good job of not directly telling you what to think about any situation. If you look at a lot of the characters in that movie, like you look at Bugging Out,
Who's
Bugging
played
Out
by
is the
Giancarlo
most like
Esposito, by
woke.
the way.
What?
He's Gus Fring. He's Giancarlo
Yeah.
Esposito.
You look at him and he's like, the woke guy. And he's just a brother trying to keep his dick hard in a harsh world or whatever the line is. And he goes around constantly with a chip on his shoulder creating these issues. And you look at Radio Raheem. Radio Raheem stomps through the entire movie. That's all he does is stomp around, blaring his music with a mean mug on, daring people to get into a confrontation with him. Until he finally got what he wanted. Like, it's not like he's some hero in that movie where you go, oh, Radio Raheem is this poor innocent guy with a radio. He was literally going around looking for trouble the entire movie. Bugging Out was looking for trouble the entire movie. And then you look at everybody else in the movie has different roles. They're not, it's not black and white. Like you look at Danny Aiello's character. On the one hand, he clearly is trying to be a good guy, cares about the neighborhood, etc. But at the same time, he also lets his son treat everybody like shit and dehumanize them and degrade them all the time.
Yep.
So on the one hand, it's like, hey, he's a good guy. But on the other hand, it's like, well, is he that good a guy because he's unleashing his shit kid on us? And then you look at, obviously, Totoro's character is pretty much just a bad guy. But even him, it's more like he just doesn't like his life and he's taking it out on the people around him. There's a lot to that movie. It's really, I don't know why so many of Spike Lee's movies are so cartoonish, because that one is like one of his first movies, and it's very nuanced. There's a lot of depth to those characters. They're not just like stereotypes or just, spouting off woke propaganda or whatever.
Well, I mean, Bugging Out, but that's part
Yeah, but my point is, Bugging Out is not like, the audience is not made to identify with Bugging Out. If anything, they're made to identify with Mookie.
Right, yes.
And there's an argument to be made that the reason Mookie, you can't get in his head, but I've seen this analysis, that the reason Mookie throws the trash barrels because he realized that something was about to happen and maybe we could redirect this at the building instead of at Sal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying you can see the logic of that, why someone might think, all right, something's going to happen. What can I do?
Yeah.
If we just run, they're going to chase Sal and beat him up.
Yeah.
So what if we could just destroy Sal and kill him?
Yeah. So and I should say, I recommend people watch, especially if you're listening to this podcast, for sure, go ahead, watch Do the Right Thing. When I say I don't like it, I don't mean the movie was poorly made. As Dan says, it's expertly made. The acting is good. The script is good. Everything about it is good. I just found it deeply unpleasant to watch because of the moral situation of the movie.
Well, there is a sense in which it's deeply unpleasant to watch because you're witnessing like the events leading up to this kind of a race riot, basically. And as you watch it, you can see almost every character is doing things that when you watch the movie on the second time and you know how it ends, you can see yourself going, oh, they're making a mistake. This one's making a mistake. That one shouldn't be doing that. Like when you watch that movie, you can see how it all could have went right. Yeah. If just this one didn't do this and this one was a little more respectful and that one listened to the other one and whatever, all these different, there's like 80 things that lead up to it. And if 5 of them just went a different way, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So in that sense, it is unpleasant to watch, but
But yeah, go ahead and watch it, people. Yeah.
In the same way that, like, if you've ever seen the movie Paths of Glory,
no,
you should watch the movie Paths of Glory. It's really good. Especially, you'd love it. But that ends in a tragic way, too. And when you watch it, it's like, the whole time it's leading up to this. But it's an expertly made movie. So go watch that. That's my recommendation.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, I'm Marcel.
And I'm Dan.
And this is The Moral Minority. Cue Richard Nixon.
Let us be united for peace. Let us also be united against defeat.